The charge arrived initially. You labeled me unfit, Maxine. Dan Bongino positioned himself in the middle of the CNN set in Los Angeles. It was 9 p.m. Eastern, prime viewing hours, with 300 individuals crammed into an area built for crowd interaction. 50% wore red and 50% wore blue. Everyone prepared for a clash. Recording devices surrounded them under scorching lights, while Jake Tapper sat betwixt the pair, attempting to radiate a command he lacked this evening. Bongino's vocals possessed that specific attribute, that law enforcement characteristic. Not noisy, not hostile, but simply definitive. It was the pitch implying, "We mutually understand the conclusion. You termed me incapable, despite my history as former NYPD and former Secret Service who physically guarded commanders-in-chief. A man who labored for his income. Yet you dubbed me incompetent." Maxine Waters rested opposite him, self-assured with an arrogance constructed across 3 decades in the legislature. This certainty came from decades of never encountering actual repercussions, a career of escaping blame for everything. She wore that appearance, that specific look, declaring she had handled worse opponents than him. She was mistaken. Bongino inclined his body forward ever so slightly. "If you wish to discuss credentials, let us discuss credentials. Let us examine 30 years within Congress while your precinct deteriorates. Let us discuss utilizing your status to rescue your spouse's financial institution. Let us mention paying your female offspring over $1 million utilizing election resources. Let us address residing in a $6 million Beverly Hills estate while representing South Central LA. He hesitated, allowing the moment to ventilate. 300 souls held their respiration. Let us have a conversation about that. Waters adjusted her position minimally, but Bongino perceived the movement. Years spent analyzing suspects, analyzing felons, and analyzing individuals preparing to deceive helped him. He noticed absolutely everything. Folks viewing from their residences, he rotated to address the lens directly. What you are preparing to witness is elementary. 5 disgraces, 5 instances of graft, and 5 justifications why this female should have faced prosecution ages ago instead of occupying Congress. Financial bailouts, payments to offspring, Beverly Hills estates, and urging brutality comprise 30 years of her history. Turning back to Waters, she is going to account for every bit of it right here, right now, on film, with no evasion. The atmosphere in the studio transformed, becoming electric and hazardous. This was not a discussion, this was an inquiry, and everybody understood it. Bongino grinned, though not amicably nor warmly. It was the smirk a police officer offers when he realizes he possesses the proof. It appears when he understands the subject is culpable. It appears when he knows this is merely a procedure prior to the shackles. If you have been anticipating someone to finally pose the inquiries to Maxine Waters that nobody else dares, distribute this. Strike that button, because what I am preparing to display is not a hypothesis. It is not a viewpoint. It is substantiated reality. It is the type of proof that dispatches individuals to penitentiary. He hoisted a binder, a dense binder full of records, exhibits, and confirmation. Let us proceed. Bongino did not squander minutes with no build-up, simply an assault. That is the manner in which interrogations function. Allow me to clarify something for you, Congresswoman. He stressed the designation, making it appear nearly offensive. Recall the 2008 fiscal collapse. You recollect financial institutions failing everywhere. Little banks, local banks, and banks that had aided vicinities for generations. They were all expiring, all frantic. He commenced striding, that vigor, that radio presenter vigor intensifying. Congress was determining who survives and who perishes, who receives taxpayer funds, who gets rescued, and who gets forsaken. These were very crucial choices involving existence and demise for thousands of enterprises and millions of occupations. Waters attempted to interject, lifting her hand in that trademark gesture. "I am not finished." He was not hostile, merely conclusive. "You serve on the Financial Services Board, the panel formulating these resolutions. You possess authority, you possess entry, and you possess clout." He ceased striding and turned to confront her straight on. "And do you realize what else you possess? You have a spouse, Sidney Williams, who occupies a seat on the directorate of One United Bank. It was a bank that was collapsing, a bank that was frantic, and a bank that required a rescue package. What are the probabilities, correct? What are the odds?" The irony oozed densely and heavily. "So allow me to pose a simple query. Affirmative or negative? Did you organize a gathering between Treasury bureaucrats and One United Bank?" Waters' hand moved to her necklace, a subconscious motion. Bongino observed it and recorded that tell she was unaware she possessed. "I adhered to standard protocols. That is not an affirmative or a negative." He interrupted her, not shouting, not hostile, just police, pure police. "Did you organize the gathering, yes or no?" The circumstance demanded an affirmative or negative. The studio fell quiet, total speechlessness. 300 individuals, all the cameras, all the staff, everybody paused, waiting and observing. Waters' voice emerged tinier than previously. "I aided dialogue between them. You organized it. It was not an inquiry. It was a declaration. You utilized your post, you utilized your might, and you secured your husband's collapsing bank, a gathering with Treasury bureaucrats. 1 week subsequently, $12 million of taxpayer funds, your money, went to them." He gestured at the spectators, indicating their currency went to rescue her husband's bank. He marched toward the crowd and stood amidst them, becoming one of them. "How many among you recognize someone who forfeited a business in 2008? Raise your palms." Hands began rising up. 1, 5, 10, 20, 30 dispersed throughout the gathering. These were people who had survived the crash, who had forfeited enterprises, forfeited savings, and forfeited everything. Bongino gestured at them. They did not receive gatherings. They did not receive rescues. They did not possess Maxine Waters interceding on their behalf. They merely forfeited everything. He returned to Waters. "Meanwhile, your spouse's bank got salvaged with their currency. That is not intricate, Maxine. That is graft. That is labeled corruption where I originate." She attempted once more, her tone defensive at this point. Other financial institutions also accepted TARP capital. Other financial institutions were not wedded to members of Congress. His pitch ascended, intensifying. "That is the distinction. That is the felony, utilizing your post to aid your kin." Waters attempted her trademark gesture once more, hand raised and voice climbing. "I am reclaiming my minutes. You do not possess minutes to reclaim." Bongino was not retreating, becoming louder now, overpowering. "The citizens of California have been anticipating responses for 15 years. It is my turn presently, and you are going to reply." The studio exploded, not with clapping, not with jeering, merely sound. It was the audio of 300 individuals realizing they were viewing something authentic. It was something unpolished, something that never occurs on television any longer. Jake Tapper attempted to interrupt, asking if we could sustain order. Nobody was paying attention. Bongino brought forth papers and displayed them aloft. The ethics panel summary, your personal ethics committee, discovered that you interceded. It discovered that your husband's bank profited. It found problems, recorded problems. But do you realize what occurred? Nothing. Absolutely zero. He strode back to the center platform and stood before Waters. Let me simplify this for everybody watching. Small banks throughout California and across America. Banks that served neighborhoods, employed folks, and assisted households. They failed. They received zero. They perished. He paused. But one bank, one unique bank, the bank where Maxine Waters' husband sat on the directorate. That bank received $12 million. And the individual who organized it, the individual who made it occur, the individual who utilized her congressional might to rescue her family's stake was here. He pointed at her. Her, Maxine Waters, the Beverly Hills Marxist residing in opulence while sermonizing about destitution. She was using your currency to preserve her family's riches. Waters could not sustain eye contact, looking down at her notes, at her palms, anywhere except at Bongino. She looked anywhere except at the cameras, anywhere except at the 300 people watching her writhe. Bongino perceived it, the rupture, the fracture, the instant when the shield begins failing. In my duration within the Secret Service, we probed financial felonies, graft, bribery, and using your post for personal profit. I have witnessed it. I have detained individuals for it. I recognize what it resembles. He leaned forward, getting nearer, closing that interrogation room gap. And this is it. This is corruption documented, proven, and on the ledger. Someone in the crowd yelled to incarcerate her. Others joined the refrain, starting quietly, initially, then intensifying to arrest her. Arrest her. Waters' hands were quivering now, visibly quivering and trembling. She attempted to lift them to halt the noise and reclaim command. But command was absent. Authority was absent, and power was absent. She was merely a politician facing allegations she could not dodge. She faced proof she could not refute, and truth she could not twist. Bongino allowed it to intensify, letting the crowd voice what he had demonstrated. He let their fury validate his charges, then raised one palm. Silence became immediate and total. That is round one. Your tax dollars, her family's bank. Small banks perished. Hers endured because she made it occur. If you are furious about that, if you believe Congress should not utilize your money to rescue their families, share this remark. Let everybody know, because we are merely getting commenced. He lifted another binder, denser than the initial one. Now, let us converse about her daughter. Let us discuss the $1 million from campaign holdings, your donations going to her child for years. Waters' visage turned ashen. The initial folder was terrible, but this one was superior, and she realized it. Bongino's vitality changed, utilizing more irony now, that radio presenter edge appearing. Okay, so we have proven corruption number one. Bank rescue, family enrichment, and utilizing taxpayer funds. That is established. That is reality. But wait. He hesitated, utilizing that trademark delay to construct anxiety. There is additional material. Oh, there is so much additional material. He marched toward Waters while she shifted in her chair, uneasy, searching for exits that were absent. Let me inform you about Karen Waters, Maxine's daughter. I do not know her and have never encountered her. However, I know her financial account, and her financial account is very robust. Do you understand why? Another hesitation. Because Mother has been paying her from campaign resources, your campaign contributions, money from folks who believed it was going to genuine campaigns, to battling for their precinct, to representing their interests, was instead going to her daughter. He halted walking and faced the lens. Over $1 million. That is not a typo, not an error. Over $1 million. He returned to Waters now. I am merely a former police officer, just a fellow who used to guard presidents, just someone who actually labored for artillery. But where I originate, when you accept donations intended for campaigns and bestow them upon your kin, that is labeled embezzlement. That is labeled larceny. That is labeled fraud. Waters attempted to assemble a defense, voice trembling. These are valid campaign disbursements, valid. Bongino chuckled, actually chuckled. $1 million to your daughter is valid? He extracted papers, FEC filings, which are public record and undeniable. Karen Waters manages something labeled slate mailers. You know what those represent? Flyers and lists of supported candidates. They are distributed during elections and cost perhaps 50 grand to manufacture, perhaps. He displayed the papers aloft. Maxine Waters has paid her daughter over $1 million for slate mailers over years, consistently. Always family, always daughter. He turned to the spectators. Let me ask you something. How many of you have contributed to political campaigns? Raise your palms. Many hands ascended, dispersed throughout the studio. Regular folks, small donors, believers. You believed that currency went to advertisements, correct? To personnel, to actually campaigning, to battling for your concerns? He allowed them to nod, allowed them to concur. Then what if I informed you it went to the candidate's daughter instead? What if I informed you it went to family enrichment? How would you feel? The whispering commenced, angry whispering, building and expanding. Bongino turned back to Waters. With all proper respect, Maxine, the words dripping with irony, and I signify zero respect. Your daughter has become wealthy off your political profession. Over $1 million came from small donors, from people who could not spare it, from families battling to pay rent. Their money went to your kin. Waters attempted again, stating, "My daughter supplies valuable services." He interrupted her. Let me simplify this. Other campaigns pay perhaps $50,000 for slate mailers, maybe. You have paid over $1 million to your daughter. That is 20 times greater for the identical service. How does that function? Silence. Waters could not reply. I will inform you how it functions. It is family enrichment. It is utilizing your post to make your family affluent. It is taking currency from people who believed in you and giving it to people who share your DNA. That is how it functions. He walked back to the spectators and stood amidst them again. These people relied on you. They sent currency they did not have. $20, $50, $100, thinking it would assist their community, assist their precinct, assist their causes. He spun back to Waters fast and aggressive. Instead, it assisted Karen Waters to purchase a house, purchase a car, and live a comfortable existence on their money. It was on donations from people who struggle, who work multiple jobs, who clip coupons, who fret about bills. His voice built and crescendoed. While your daughter got rich, that is what their donations purchased. Not representation, not advocacy, not alteration, just your daughter's bank account. The audience exploded, booing and shouting to return it. Refund! Fraud. Waters' hands went to her face, covering and hiding. That defensive gesture, that guilty gesture. Bongino observed it and knew what it signified. In the Secret Service, we probed financial crimes, money laundering, embezzlement, and fraud. I have witnessed it all, and you know what this represents. He pointed at her, direct and accusatory. This is it. This is fraud. Taking money under false pretenses, utilizing it for personal profit, family enrichment. That is textbook fraud. Waters attempted to speak, mouth opened, closed, opened again, but no words arrived. Just that defensive posture, those hands covering her face, that realization that there is no exit. Jake Tapper attempted to give her an opening, asking if the Congresswoman would like to respond. She cannot respond. Bongino was not releasing her. There is no response. The figures are public record, FEC filings. Anyone can investigate them. Over $1 million to her daughter. It is documented. He produced more papers and held them up. Year by year, payment by payment. Karen Waters. Karen Waters. Karen Waters. Always the daughter, always family, always enrichment. Turn to the camera, to America, to 10 million people watching. This is what swamp creatures do. This is what Beverly Hills Marxists do. They preach about aiding people, about battling for communities, about representing the impoverished. And then they utilize your money to make their families rich. Back to Waters, she was shrinking now, getting smaller. The aggressive matriarch who dominated Congress for decades was gone. Just a politician exposed, caught, guilty. With all due respect, Bongino's voice dripped venom. Your daughter is a millionaire from campaign funds, from small donors, from people who believed in you. While South Central struggles, while Compton has crime, while Watts has poverty, your daughter is fine. She is wealthy. She is comfortable. He paused, letting it sink in. On their money. The studio was on its feet now, half standing, half shouting, all engaged. This was not entertainment anymore. This was exposure. Real exposure. Truth was being dragged into light it had avoided for years. Waters could not look up, could not face it, just sat there, hands over face, shoulders hunched, defensive, guilty, caught. That is 2 scandals, folks. Bank bailout, daughter payoffs. Both using your money, both enriching her family. If you are angry, if you donated to campaigns and want to know where your money went, share this tag, people. Let them see what corruption looks like up close. He picked up another folder, even thicker. Because now we talk about where she lives. And trust me, you are going to love this. The Beverly Hills Marxist in her $6 million mansion while representing South Central. This is my favorite. Waters looked up, fear in her eyes, real fear. Because she knew what was coming, and she knew there was no defense. Bongino's tone changed, more mockery now, that edge of disbelief mixed with disgust. Let me explain something to you about Maxine Waters' district. He pulled out a map, District 43, California, and put it on the screen. South Central Los Angeles, Watts, Compton, some of the poorest communities in California. High poverty, high crime, struggling families. That is her district. That is who she represents. That is who voted for her for 30 years. He let that sink in. You know where Maxine lives? Pause. Building. Beverly Hills. Another pause. Heavier. Not near Beverly Hills. not Beverly Hills adjacent, not in a neighborhood that's like Beverly Hills. Beverly Hills, a $6 million mansion. $6 million. He walked toward Waters. Let me ask you something, Congresswoman. When is the last time you spent a night in South Central, in your district, in the community you represent? Waters attempted to answer, saying, I don't see how that is relevant. When, not aggressive, just insistent, simple question. When is the last time you slept in your district among the people you represent? Silence. She could not answer, did not answer. I will answer for you. Never or close enough to never that it does not matter. Because you do not live there. You live in Beverly Hills in a mansion, in luxury. Far away from the poverty you preach about. Far away from the crime you ignore. Far away from the people you claim to represent. He turned to the audience, to the cameras. Let me break this down. When I was NYPD, I lived in Brooklyn near the people I served. That is what cops do. That is what public servants do. They live with the people, not away from them. Back to Waters. But you represent South Central from Beverly Hills. You advocate for the poor from a mansion. You lecture about inequality while living in the top 1%. Waters attempted deflection, stating many representatives live outside their districts. Many representatives aren't you. His voice rose, that intensity building. Many representatives do not spend 30 years preaching about poverty while accumulating millions. Many representatives do not lecture about oppression from $6 million mansions. He walked among the audience again. How many of you live in the area you work in, or grew up in, or serve? Most hands went up. Normal people do that. Normal people live near their work, near their community, near the people they serve. But Maxine, she is not normal. She is special. She is elite. She is Beverly Hills. The sarcasm was thick enough to choke on. Let me explain something. He walked back to center stage. Her constituents in South Central average income is $30,000 a year. Her constituents in Compton are struggling with crime, with poverty, with failing schools. Her constituents in Watts face some of the hardest circumstances in America. He pointed at Waters. And their congresswoman lives in a $6 million mansion in Beverly Hills, where average home price is $4 million, where she is surrounded by wealth, by luxury, by everything her constituents do not have. Waters attempted anger, raised her voice, which worked before. I have dedicated my life to this. To what? Bongino exploded. Not controlled anymore. Raw. To getting rich. To accumulating wealth. To living in luxury while your district suffers. That is what you dedicated your life to. He faced the cameras. The people of California are watching. South Central is watching. Compton is watching. Watts is watching. And they want to know, why does their congresswoman live in Beverly Hills? Why doesn't she live near them? Why doesn't she live with them? Back to Waters. Quieter now. More dangerous. Because you are not one of them. You never were. You used them. You used their votes. You used their trust. You used their poverty as a platform to get rich. And now you live in Beverly Hills while they are still in South Central, still struggling, still poor, still waiting for the help that never comes. He produced property records and put them on screen. Her mansion images, luxury, wealth, then images of South Central, poverty, struggle, crime side by side. The contrast was devastating. $6 million for her, $30,000 a year for them. That is representation. That is advocacy. That is fighting for the people. The audience was getting louder, angrier. This was not abstract anymore. This was visual. This was proof, undeniable, obvious, damning. With all due respect, Maxine, the phrase had become his weapon, his recurring jab. You are worth millions, millions, while your district struggles. While your constituents live in poverty, while families in South Central worry about making rent, you are in Beverly Hills safe, secure, wealthy. Waters could not look at him, could not face the cameras, could not maintain any composure. She just sat there shrinking, getting smaller. The matriarch becoming the accused. That is called hypocrisy where I come from. That is called fraud. That is called using people. Taking their votes, taking their trust, taking their support, and giving them nothing in return except more of the same poverty they have always had. He walked toward her one more time. You know what kills me? What really kills me? It is not that you are rich, good for you. America rewards success. It is that you are rich while preaching against wealth. You are living in luxury while attacking luxury. You are part of the elite while claiming to fight the elite. His voice dropped, that cop intensity. You are a fraud, a Beverly Hills Marxist, living the life you claim to oppose, benefiting from the system you claim to fight, getting rich off the people you claim to help. The studio erupted, standing ovation. Not for Bongino, for truth, for exposure, for finally seeing what everyone suspected, but nobody proved. Waters put her head down, could not watch, could not listen. Just there, present, but broken. The aggressive politician who started this confrontation was gone, destroyed, exposed. That is, 3 scandals: bank bailout, daughter payoffs, Beverly Hills mansion, all while representing South Central, all while claiming to fight for the poor, all while getting rich off their trust. He opened another folder, this one darker, more serious. But now we talk about violence, about incitement, about her calling for people to harass government officials, about real people getting threatened, getting attacked, getting hurt because of her words. His voice changed, got harder. That Secret Service edge. This one is personal because I spent my career protecting people, and she spent her career putting people in danger. Waters looked up, eyes wide, terrified, because this one was on video, her words, her face, her voice, undeniable. Bongino's entire demeanor shifted. This was not sarcasm anymore. This was not mockery. This was cop, real cop, angry cop, protective cop. Let me explain something to you. His voice was quieter, colder, more dangerous than any shouting. In the Secret Service, our job was simple: protect the president, protect government officials, protect them from threats, from harassment, from violence. That was our mission. That was our purpose. He walked slowly toward Waters. And you called for the exact opposite. You called for harassment, for confrontation, for violence. He stopped, pulled out a tablet. Video queued up. June 2018, Los Angeles. You are at a rally, and you say this. He played it. Her voice, her face, her words on screen. Undeniable. If you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out, and you create a crowd, and you push back on them. He paused the video, let those words hang there. Create a crowd. Push back on them. He repeated it slowly. Those are your words, Maxine. not taken out of context, not edited. Your words on video telling people to harass government officials. He walked among the audience. Let me break this down for everyone. Create a crowd. That is mob action. Push back. That is physical confrontation. She is not talking about peaceful protest. She is talking about harassment, about intimidation, about making people afraid. Back to Waters. You continued. You said, tell them they are not welcome anymore. Anywhere. Anywhere. Not in public spaces, not in restaurants, not in stores. Anywhere. His voice rose, building. And you know what happened? People listened. They created crowds. They pushed back. They harassed officials. They threatened families. They scared children. He pulled out news reports, put them on screen. Secretary of Homeland Security eating dinner with her family. Mob shows up, starts chanting, starts threatening. She has to leave. Her family terrified because of your words. More reports. White House press secretary at a restaurant kicked out. Owner cites your speech, your call to action, your incitement. More. Senator at airport, confronted, harassed, surrounded, because you told people to create crowds. His voice kept building, getting louder, more intense. Cabinet members, senators, officials, all harassed, all threatened, all because you told people to do it. Waters tried to defend, saying I was talking about peaceful. Bongino exploded. You said push back. You said not welcome anywhere. Those are not peaceful words. Those are threatening words. He got closer, right in front of her. Let me explain something. In my time protecting presidents, we dealt with threats every single day. Real threats from people who believed violence was justified. And you know what gives them permission? What gives them justification? He pointed at her. People like you with power, with platforms, telling them it is okay. Telling them to create crowds, telling them to push back. You give them permission. Waters tried again, voice barely working, stating I was exercising my First Amendment. The First Amendment does not protect incitement. His voice filled the studio. I am a cop. I know the law, and you crossed the line. He turned to the audience. How many of you have ever been threatened for your political beliefs, harassed, confronted? Several hands went up, scattered. Real people, real experiences. It is scary, right? It is intimidating. It makes you afraid. Afraid to speak, afraid to participate, afraid to engage. He let them nod, let them remember. And people like Maxine Waters, they create that fear. They cause that harassment with their words, with their incitement. He walked back to center. In the Secret Service, we had a saying, words have consequences. What you say matters. How you say it matters. Who hears it matters. He faced Waters directly. You told people to harass officials, and they did. You told them to create crowds, and they did. You told them to push back, and they did. Those are consequences, direct consequences, cause and effect. His voice dropped, that quiet intensity. And when people got hurt, when families got scared, when children cried because mobs were threatening their parents, you did not apologize. You did not take it back. You doubled down. He played more video, her defending the comments, refusing to apologize, insisting she meant it. See that? That is not a mistake. That is not an error. That is intentional. That is calculated. That is knowing you incited harassment and being proud of it. The audience was silent now. Different silence. Heavy silence. This was not about money anymore. This was about safety, about security, about people being hurt because someone with power told others to hurt them. Bongino's voice stayed quiet, more impact that way. With all due respect, and I mean absolutely none, you put people in danger. Real people, government officials doing their jobs, their families, their children. You put them all in danger because you were angry about politics. Waters was crying now, openly crying, not remorse tears, caught tears, guilty tears. The tears of someone who knows they crossed a line and got caught. Let me explain what that makes you. He moved closer. In my time as a cop, we arrested people who incited violence, who called for harassment, who put others in danger. We did not give them a pass because they were angry. We did not excuse it because they had political disagreements. We arrested them. He pointed at her. You should have been arrested. What you did is a crime, incitement. It is on the books. It is prosecutable. But you are in Congress, so you got away with it. His voice rose again. But the people do not forget. The people remember. Restaurant workers remember being put in danger. Officials remember being harassed. Families remember being threatened. All because you told people to do it. The audience erupted, not cheering, not booing, just anger, raw anger. The sound of people realizing that someone with power had abused it, had put regular people in danger, had incited violence and faced no consequences. Waters could not look up, could not face it, hands over face, crying, broken. The aggressive matriarch completely gone. Just scared politician, knowing she is exposed. That is 4 scandals, folks. Bank bailout, daughter payoffs, Beverly Hills mansion, inciting violence. All documented, all proven, all on the record. If you have ever been threatened for your politics, if you know anyone who has been harassed, share this. Let people see what happens when powerful people call for violence. He picked up the final folder, the thickest one. But we are not done, because now we talk about 30 years. 3 decades of Maxine Waters, 3 decades of corruption, 3 decades of getting rich while her district got poorer. This is the summary. This is the total picture. This is the knockout. Waters looked up, eyes red, face wet, terrified, because she knew. 30 years of everything all coming out all at once with no escape. Bongino looked tired, not actually tired, performatively tired. That exhaustion of seeing too much corruption, too much fraud, too much getting away with it. 30 years, he said it quietly. Let it hang there. Maxine Waters has been in Congress for 30 years. Since 1991, George H.W. Bush was president. The Soviet Union still existed. The Internet was brand new. 30 years ago. He walked slowly, deliberately. You know what South Central looked like 30 years ago? Poor, high crime, struggling schools, failing infrastructure, problems everywhere. Pause. You know what South Central looks like now, 30 years later, after 3 decades of Maxine Waters representing them? Final pause. Devastating pause. Exactly the same. Actually worse. Poverty higher. Crime higher. Schools still failing. Infrastructure still crumbling. Every metric worse or the same, but never better. He faced Waters. But you know what did get better? Your bank account, your house, your daughter's bank account. Those got better. South Central still waiting. She could not respond, just sat there crying, broken, finished. "Let me break this down." He pulled out statistics, put them on screen. 30 years ago, South Central had these poverty rates, these crime rates, these unemployment rates. Numbers appeared. Today, same rates, higher rates, worse rates, more numbers. 30 years ago, Maxine Waters was worth maybe $1 million. Comfortable. Today, multiple millions. Mansion, daughter, enriched. Family, wealthy. The contrast stark, damning, obvious. In my time protecting presidents, I saw a lot of politicians, good ones, bad ones, corrupt ones. But this, he gestured at the screens at the data. This is special. This is someone who got elected to help people and instead helped herself for 3 decades. He walked toward Waters. You have had 30 years. 30 years to make a difference. 30 years to help. 30 years to serve. And what do your constituents have to show for it? He waited. Let her try to answer. She could not. Nothing. They have nothing. Same poverty, same crime, same struggling, same waiting for help that never comes. 30 years, zero progress for them. His voice rose. But for you, 30 years of success, of wealth accumulation, of family enrichment, of living better while they live the same or worse. He turned to cameras. The people of California are watching. South Central is watching, and they want answers. After 30 years of Maxine Waters, what has changed? What has improved? What has gotten better? Back to Waters. Nothing. The answer is nothing. Your district has waited 30 years, and gotten nothing, while you have gotten everything. He pulled out more documents, more evidence. Bank scandal, daughter payments, Beverly Hills mansion, ethics investigations, financial irregularities, incitement, all of it over 30 years. It is not one mistake. It is not one bad decision. It is a pattern. His voice got harder, that prosecutor tone. 30 years of using public office for private gain. That is the pattern. That is the career. That is the legacy. He walked to center stage, stood under the lights. With all due respect, Maxine, and we have established, I mean none. You have had an entire career to help people, to serve, to make a difference. And instead you made yourself rich, made your family comfortable, made your daughter a millionaire. He pointed at her. While South Central struggled, while Compton suffered, while Watts waited, they got nothing. You got everything. That is not public service. That is theft. That is corruption. That is using people for personal gain. The studio was on its feet, all of them, 300 people standing, some applauding, some silent, all witnessing the destruction of someone who had held power for 3 decades and abused it every single day. Waters had her head down, completely down, shoulders shaking, crying, not trying to defend anymore, not trying to spin, just broken, destroyed, exposed. After 30 years of getting away with it. That is it, folks. 5 scandals, 5 rounds, bank bailout, using your money, daughter payments from your donations, Beverly Hills mansion while representing poverty, inciting violence that hurt real people. 30 years of corruption getting rich, while her district suffered. He faced the main camera, direct address to America. This is what the swamp looks like. This is what corruption looks like. This is what happens when someone gets power and never faces consequences for 30 years until now. until tonight. Pause. Let it breathe. Share this everywhere. Subscribe, comment, tell everyone you know. Because corruption does not expose itself, someone has to do it. Someone has to ask the questions. Someone has to demand answers. And tonight, someone did. The audience erupted. Standing ovation. Thunder, applause. Not for Bongino, for truth, for exposure, for accountability finally arriving after 3 decades. Waters could not move, could not speak, could not function, just sat there destroyed. The aggressive matriarch who dominated Congress for 30 years gone, just broken politician facing consequences she had avoided for an entire career. Jake Tapper tried to wrap up, saying we should thank our guests, but nobody was listening. The show was over, the exposure complete, the damage done. Waters broken, Bongino victorious, America watching, and nobody would forget what they had just seen. The Beverly Hills Marxist finally exposed after 30 years on live television in front of 10 million people with no escape, no spin, no way out. Justice, real justice, the kind that happens when someone finally asks the right questions, when evidence finally gets shown, when truth finally matters more than power. The video went viral before the credits finished rolling. 20 million views in the first hour. 50 million by morning. 100 million by end of week. Maxine exposed trending worldwide. Beverly Hills Marxist becoming permanent nickname. Bongino destroys Waters, capturing every clip, every exchange, every moment of destruction. Conservative media exploded. Fox News ran the confrontation on loop. Hannity devoted entire show to analysis. Tucker Carlson called it the most devastating political takedown in television history. Laura Ingraham played the bank section 5 times. The ratings were massive, record-breaking, historic. Liberal media tried to defend her. Couldn't. The evidence was too clear. The corruption too obvious. CNN ran segments about controversial moments, but their own studio had hosted the destruction. MSNBC tried focusing on Bongino's tone instead of Waters' crimes. Didn't work. By evening, even they had moved on, left her to drown alone. Waters' office stopped answering phones immediately. Voicemail full within an hour. System crashed by midnight. Overwhelmed by constituents demanding answers. Demanding resignation. Demanding she finally face consequences. Her staff quit. Mass exodus. Nobody wanted the association. Chief of staff gone by morning. Press secretary by afternoon. Legislative director by evening. Within 48 hours, 3 people left running her entire operation. Everyone else fled. Resumes circulating looking for any work that was not connected to Maxine Waters. The squad silent. Not one tweet of support. Not one statement of solidarity. Not one public appearance together. Omar posted something about unity without naming Waters. Tlaib went dark. AOC retweeted environmental news. Presley deleted social media apps. The Progressive Alliance was fake. Always had been. Now everyone knew. Nancy Pelosi's office released one sentence. The Congresswoman must address these serious allegations. Translation: you are on your own. Figure it out. Good luck, you will need it. Democratic leadership privately discussed options. Committee removals, censure, expulsion. Waters had been protected for decades, but protection has limits, and she had exceeded them. Within days, 3 different ethics complaints were filed, all citing the same evidence Bongino presented. Bank bailout, daughter payments, financial irregularities, the complaints formal, official, public. The House Ethics Committee announced investigation, formal investigation, no choice after that exposure. After that evidence, after 10 million people watched corruption explained in detail on live television, primary challenger announced within hours, didn't wait, struck while Waters was wounded. Not another progressive, a moderate, a reformer, someone from South Central actually from the district, actually living there, actually representing the people. His slogan, South Central deserves better, his first ad clips from the debate, Waters' mansion versus South Central poverty, her daughter's payments versus constituent struggles, her 30-year record versus 30 years of no progress. The contrast, devastating. Fundraising exploded. 2 million in first week, all small donors. $5, $10, $20. People who had waited 30 years for someone to challenge her. For someone to finally say what everyone knew, what everyone saw, what everyone suffered under. Polling showed him leading by 15 points within 2 weeks, by 20 points by end of month. The lead growing as more people watched the debate, as more people learned the truth, as more people realized they had been used for 30 years. Campaign donors demanded refunds, thousands of them. People who had given to Waters over the years, whose money went to her daughter, who wanted it back, wanted justice, wanted accountability. Her campaign tried damage control, issued statements, called it partisan attacks, called it racism, called it sexism. None of it worked. The evidence was public record. The proof was undeniable. The corruption was obvious. Waters deleted social media apps, couldn't handle the comments, the mockery, the truth. Millions of posts, all brutal, all accurate, all permanent. She had not appeared publicly since the debate. 3 weeks of silence. No statements, no interviews, no town halls, just hiding in Beverly Hills, in her mansion away from the district, away from the people, away from accountability. Her approval rating collapsed, 68% to 29% in weeks, the fastest political implosion in California history. Polling showed her losing primary by 35 points to literally anyone, to any challenger, to any option other than Maxine Waters. South Central community leaders called for resignation. Formal statement. Public. Brutal. She used our poverty to get rich. She used our votes to get power. She used our trust to enrich her family for 30 years. We demand she resign. We demand someone who actually represents us, who actually lives with us, who actually cares about us. The statement echoed, shared, retweeted, posted everywhere by everyone. The community she had represented for 30 years turned against her finally, completely, permanently. Beverly Hills neighbors stayed quiet. Rich people do not comment on scandals involving other rich people. Professional courtesy, but they knew, everyone knew, the mansion on the hill belonged to a criminal, to someone who had stolen from the poor to live among the rich, to the Beverly Hills Marxist. Bongino became conservative hero. His radio show ratings doubled, tripled, highest ever. Advertisers paying premium rates. Networks offering shows, book deals, appearing, speaking invitations flooding in. But he kept message simple, consistent. I am just a former cop who asked questions. Questions everyone should have asked 30 years ago. Questions journalists should have asked. Questions ethics committees should have asked. I just asked. She could not answer. That is it. The phrase caught on. Just ask the questions became conservative rallying cry. Applied to every politician, every scandal, every cover-up. Simple questions, direct questions, questions that demand answers. Trump called Bongino personally. Beautiful job. Beautiful. That is how you do it. You destroyed her completely. Plans discussed potential roles, future opportunities, the door opening wider. Waters looked for exit strategy. Post-Congress career options limited. Nobody wanted her. Think tanks said no. Universities said no. Companies said no. Even progressive organizations passed. The brand too damaged. The corruption too obvious. The exposure too complete. Book publishers would not return calls. Speaking agents stopped answering. Netflix deal never materialized. She was alone, completely alone. Everything she had built over 30 years destroyed in 2 hours. By a former cop asking simple questions, her Wikipedia page updated within hours. No longer senior member of Congress, no longer influential progressive, no longer civil rights icon. Just former U.S. representative, subject of ethics investigations, lost primary following televised debate. Known for controversial record and corruption allegations, that was her legacy. Former controversial investigations, nothing else would be remembered. The 30 years forgotten, the corruption remembered, the exposure permanent. Political obituaries written while she still held office, the fall of Maxine Waters became common headline. Articles analyzing what went wrong, where she failed, how she lost. But they all missed the point. She did not lose. She was exposed for what she had always been. Corrupt, self-serving, using people for personal gain for 30 years. Until someone finally asked questions, until someone finally demanded answers, until someone finally exposed the truth. Bongino was that someone. The Brooklyn cop, who became Secret Service agent, who became radio host, who became the person who destroyed the Beverly Hills Marxist. Small donors who had been refunded told their stories, dozens of them, hundreds. People who had given to Waters over the years, who had believed in her, who trusted her, who learned their money went to her daughter, who got checks back, who got justice finally. One elderly woman, never named publicly, just a donor from Compton, spoke about giving $20 a month for 5 years. 1,200 total, thinking it helped her community. Learning it helped Karen Waters buy a car, getting refund check, crying. Not from joy, from betrayal, from 30 years of being used. Her story represented thousands, everyone who had trusted Waters, everyone who had believed, everyone who learned the truth, everyone who got betrayed. South Central community organized without her. Other representatives helped. Real aid arrived. Real programs started. Real progress began. The community remembered who actually helped versus who just took. Remembered who showed up versus who showed off. Remembered 30 years of nothing versus 3 weeks of something. Beverly Hills said nothing. Rich neighborhoods do not comment on scandals, but property values near her mansion dropped slightly. Reputation matters even in wealth. Nobody wants to live next to exposed corruption. Nobody wants their neighborhood associated with the Beverly Hills Marxist. Conservative movement used Waters as symbol of everything wrong, of 30 years of corruption, of politicians getting rich while constituents suffer, of using poverty as platform for personal wealth. She became the example, the warning, the proof of everything they had always said. Bongino used victory as launching point. Bigger shows, bigger platforms, bigger audience. The guy who destroyed Maxine Waters, the cop who caught the criminal, the investigator who exposed corruption. That was his brand now, that was his power, but he stayed consistent. I just asked questions, simple questions, direct questions, questions based on evidence, based on public records, based on facts. She could not answer them. That is not my fault. That is hers. And he was right. The questions were simple. The evidence was public. The corruption was obvious. For 30 years until someone asked, until someone demanded answers, until someone exposed it all. Waters learned what happens when accountability finally arrives, when protection finally fails, when power finally ends. She learned that 30 years of getting away with it does not mean you get away with it forever. Eventually, someone asks questions. Eventually, evidence gets shown. Eventually, truth matters. The Beverly Hills Marxist learned it the hard way on live television in front of 10 million people. With no escape, no spin, no way out. Just a cop asking questions. Just evidence speaking truth. Justice finally arriving after 3 decades. That is what happened when Brooklyn met Beverly Hills, when a cop met a criminal, when someone finally asked the questions everyone should have asked 30 years ago. Waters got exposed, destroyed, finished, and everyone watched. Everyone knew. Everyone remembered. Justice does not always arrive, but when it does, when someone finally asks the right questions, when evidence finally matters more than power, it is devastating, complete, permanent. The Beverly Hills Marxist learned that the hard way, the only way that matters, with the whole world watching, and nobody forgot. Folks, if watching Dan Bongino destroy Maxine Waters with simple questions gave you satisfaction, even a fraction of the satisfaction it gave those small donors who got refunds, hit that like button right now. Share this, send it to everyone, because this is what accountability looks like. When someone finally demands it, let people see what happens when a former cop asks the questions journalists should have asked. When evidence matters more than power. When corruption finally faces consequences. Comment below, should Waters face prosecution? Should other politicians be investigated the same way? Who should be exposed next? Because America is watching. South Central is watching. And we are not forgetting. Subscribe, because there are plenty more where she came from. Bernie, AOC, the squad, all hiding similar contradictions, all living similar lies, all waiting for someone to ask simple questions they cannot answer. This is just the beginning. Dan Bongino showed how it is done. Ask questions, demand answers, show evidence. Let corruption expose itself. That is what we deliver every time. No exceptions, no excuses, just questions, just evidence, just truth. See you in the next one. And trust me, it is going to be even better. Because justice does not sleep. Truth does not stop. And neither do we.